Joining us now, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. He's the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee and has served as Senate Democratic Whip since 2005. He announced yesterday he will not be seeking re-election, and that was quite a big piece of news that came over yesterday. Senator, your thoughts this morning on your decision, especially during these turbulent times?
One of my friends in politics used to say, you should leave at a time when you still might want to stay and people might want you to stay. And I think I'm at that moment in my career. It's a personal decision to run for the Senate is a two-year undertaking. Serving in the Senate is a 6-year term. So I looked at 8 years and said, I think it's time for me to pass the torch on to another candidate.
So let's talk about the politics of the moment. And from Ukraine to tariffs, there are some things that are happening that could have pretty long-term consequences, not only on the world order, but on the U.S. economy. Can you comment, sir, on how the tariffs impact your state and what your biggest concerns are?
Devastating. That's the word I'd use. When farmers from my state depend on exports for their livelihood, and their exports are going to be the first to be undermined by any trade war that this president undertakes. I've had CEOs of major corporations who I've never spoken to before call me in my office in Washington and ask me what in the hell they're supposed to do. They have critical elements that are coming in from overseas to make products that employ thousands of people in my state, and they don't know where to turn. That uncertainty is reflected in the stock market and other places. So I would say this trade war that this president has single-handedly decided to initiate is a disaster for the economy of my state and this country.
So, Senator, Mika just mentioned Ukraine. We want to get your reaction to something we just got from President Trump a moment ago on Truth Social, saying, quote, "I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv." There's been a number this morning. "Not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop." President using the president of Russia's first name there. What is your response to this, what you've seen as this peace process to this point? Yes, some stern words from President Trump today for Moscow, but to this point, his administration largely not asking Russia to give up much while asking Ukraine for a lot of concessions.
I remember the president's kind of idle claim that he needed about 24 hours to figure out this war in Ukraine. It's much more complex. And secondly, he has to understand that Mr. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is fighting for the values which define the United States of America. This just isn't another trade war or skirmish in another country. It's so basic and fundamental. And I would say this, an appeal, and I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but we're about to bury one of the greatest popes, I think, that has served in my lifetime. Wouldn't it be significant for the world to say we're going to have a Francis Day in this world? We're going to stop the wars in Gaza. We're going to stop the war in Ukraine and the other conflicts. We're going to feed the people in Sudan, and we're going to do acts of kindness in memory of this pope. It would be, I think, significance for us to have a Francis Day around this world.
And certainly the Pope relentlessly called for an end to the fighting, both in Ukraine and Gaza. Senator, yesterday after you made your announcement that you would not be seeking re-election, there were a number of Democrats who privately really applauded your choice, saying that it was something, the right thing to do, to step aside and perhaps let a younger generation of politicians step to the forefront. We know the idea of Democratic elected officials and age has been a hot topic in recent years. Do you agree with that thinking? Do you think it is time now for younger politicians, the next generation, to come forward?
Well, I think it's more complex. It is not just a question of a number, what your age is. Look at Bernie Sanders, for God's sake, still drawing thousands and thousands of people out for rallies, and he's a few years older than I am. The bottom line is, are you competent? Can you still do the job? That's the question the voters should ask. But should a new generation be interested in public service? You bet. I've spent my time in office trying to encourage younger people to get involved.
Senator Durbin, it's Ali Vitale. I wonder if I can pick up on something you just said, this idea of, are you competent? Are you able to do this job in the Senate? As you see this push from the grassroots that Lamir is talking about here, do you think enough of your colleagues are asking themselves those fundamental questions about if they can continue to serve?
I think so. I think if you're honest about yourself and your reputation, you want to leave when you can still walk out the front door and not be carried out the back door. And I've said whatever your interest may be, whatever issue you want to focus on in Congress, in the Senate, if you stick around a couple terms, your minor is going to be aging. You can see it, you can observe it, and you have to make that choice, that decision. I've made mine.
Senator, your early endorsement of Barack Obama in 2008 is seen as a pivotal moment, not just for Barack Obama personally, but for the direction of the Democratic Party. And it was prescient in many ways. In this moment, what do you think the central question is for Democrats? And as you prepare to leave, what is your advice to them about what the coalition should look like and who should lead it in the future?
This is a different moment in history than I've read about or seen in my lifetime, for sure. This is a moment where there's a threat to the Constitution of the United States and our constitutional democracy. That is fundamental, and it's in front of every other decision of policy that we might make. We have to get it together. I will plead with my Republican friends, stand up for the Constitution. You took an oath and said you'd swear to defend this Constitution. It needs defense now more than ever with the actions by President Trump. At 100 days of this administration, the question is not whether Trump is sinking in the polling, and he appears to be, but whether his fate is going to be shared by other Republicans and whether they have the courage to join Democrats and do the right things and stand up for the Constitution. That, to me, I think just supersedes all conversations about campaigns and even issues.
Senator Durbin, looking over your bio, I realize that you are the reason that we no longer have cigarette smoking on airplanes. And I thank you for that. That's one of many legislative achievements that you've had during your long tenure in public service. I just wanted to ask you, what are you most proud of that you did or worked on during your time in Congress?
Well, my dreamers, I introduced the DREAM Act over 20 years ago, and 830,000 individuals have now proven that I was right. They've made a dramatic contribution to this country because of the DACA program, which Barack Obama initiated. That is a source of pride. But I have to tell you, taking smoking off of airplanes changed America. It was a Malcolm Gladwell tipping point for sure. And when you look back to where we were 20 plus years ago and where we are today, it's a lot safer environment, and it's a lot healthier, and it sure is a lot more fun to ride on an airplane.
Democratic Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
It's great to have you.